Gather round, YouTube, for I'm going to tell you about a deck that runs 10 land and is mono green. This is a very old Legacy deck that I built years ago, and I put a few upgrades in them as newer sets came out. It's not tournament quality unless you're playing a Legacy event where people are running a very, very low power curve, as in Vile Goblins being one of the best decks there. Then I could see this actually winning. But basically the way the deck works is you kind of play like Affinity. You just dump your hand as fast as you can and keep swinging until their opponent, is dead, basically. So here's our land, our mana base, 10 beautiful forests, just basic land, that's it. Keep us from being, hit by wasteland. Very, very easy, very, very simple to get a hold of the mana base. Let's look at the creatures. Quirion Ranger. Okay, simple 1/1 drop, but return a forest, untap a creature. Very good in this deck because it gives a creature pseudo vigilance basically. You can do it during your opponent's turn. Boom, surprise blocker. Bam. You can have one forest and you can generate 2 mana out of it. So very good, automatically a 4/of. Dryad Militant. Originally this was Wild Dogs from the Urza block, 2/1, cycling for 2, 1 green. If your opponent had more life than you during your upkeep, they got control of Wild Dogs. Then it became Jungle Lion from Portal, 2/1, can't block, 1 green mana. Normally you don't want to block in this deck anyway, so it really wasn't a problem. But Militant came out, look at that, beautiful. Instant or sorcery, if they go to the graveyards from anywhere, exile them, which is beautiful because it's an incredible ability, especially in Legacy. You have to deal with stuff like Tarmogoyf, Nimble Mongoose, Dredge. It's not an automatic win, but it slows them down, which is very, very good. And then we have our 3 Nettle Sentinels. This originally was Gazban Ogre, 2/2 for 1 green. It had that upkeep clause, your opponent has more life than you. Bam, they get control of it. Kind of sucks when you would play first and you drop like, Ogre, Wild Dogs, and your opponent would just, okay, Lightning Bolt you, and then they'd get control of all your creatures. So this really is a lot better, and it's a lot safer to run it this way. Well, we're not really worried about that untap clause. Number 1, we have a deck with 50 green spells, so we're pretty good on green. And worst case scenario, Quirion Ranger untaps her. The Pit Skulk. I've actually killed a lot of people with this. It's a 1/1 for green. Normally, however, it's a 2/2 because of Bloodthirst. The beauty part is if your opponent doesn't have creatures with power with power equal to or greater than the Pit Skulk, they can't block it. So it's real easy, you get like a turn 1 creature, swing, deal damage, pop that into play for turn, on the next turn, bam, there we go, it's a 2/2. Pump spells, Rancor, Giant Growth, Briar Shield, some type of a pump to increase it, bam, they can't block it now. At least until they get something bigger out. Which means you can basically just swing with impunity with that 1 creature. Biggest problem? Getting it killed. If you go all in with it, like double Rancor and Bounty of the Hunt it, and your opponent says, oh, by the way, kill it, plow it, bolt it, what have you, you really just got hosed. And then, that kind of sucks. You gotta know when to go all in and when not to in the deck. And then Spirit Guides, make it faster. Obviously, you open 1 or 2 of these in your opening hand, and I've actually had 2 of these in my opening hand. A creature I could play for free and a land, and I was on the draw, and I dumped my hand. I just dumped everything out, all 8 cards around the field, or exiled because of the Elvish Spirit Guide. So it's fast because of that. River Boa, boom, there we go. Regenerate, which very few creatures in Legacy actually do have that regenerate clause. Very few creatures you'll see actually run that. So it is a very big pain in the ass for some decks. Goblins, it's a big pain in the ass. Canadian Thresh, even them, because it has Island Walk. You can swing, untap it with the Ranger, and block with it. Block your Goyf, regenerate it. Hey, that's beautiful. And then we have our Rogue Elephant. 3/3 for 1 comes into play. You may sacrifice a forest, or you sacrifice Rogue Elephant. Now, the way the Oracle text is worded, it actually comes into play. The Rogue Elephant will actually come into play. It's not like crop rotation, where the addition to playing crop rotation is sacking a forest. The Elephant actually comes into play. So if you're playing Dredge, or playing against Dredge, and your opponent has Bridge from Below's in the yard, play it, refuse to sack the forest, and just let it go to the yard. It goes from play to the yard. If I'm reading the Oracle text right, that's what happens, and you basically just tell your opponent, exile your bridges for 1 green mana, which actually would be hilarious to see in a real tournament. Sky Shroud Elite, a 1/1 for 1 green. Well, your opponent has non-basic lands, like pretty much almost any Legacy deck out there, so he's actually a 2/3 for 1 green. He's green's Kurt Ape, basically. This makes it a lot faster, especially if you're playing decks that rely on basically nothing but non-basic lands. It just speeds the deck up a bit more. We got Vine Dryad. It's free. It's a 1/3 with Forest Walk. The ability of being able to flash it into play by pitching a spell you don't need makes it a lot more powerful, because, oh yeah, end of turn after a board wipe, boom, there we go. It's a surprise, so you can hold back. You can hold the Dryad and a Pit Skulk in your hand. Your opponent board wipes, you pitch, say, Land Grant to it. Bam, Dryad at the end of your turn. Is it okay? If it resolves, your untap phase hits, you can now attack with it, because it can now attack. It was under your control since the beginning of your turn. So you can attack. And then you play the Pit Skulk, boom, Bloodthirst counter. That's a way to get around a lot of decks. Surprise blockers for Lackey. And with the Forest Walk ability, once again, Canadian Thresh, basically start walking through their defenses. They can't block it. It's actually hilarious. If you drop a Dryad and a River Boa, and they stick, they have to be very, very fast now, because you're dealing 3 damage a turn. Yeah, it's a 7-turn clock, but you're also basically dropping threats every turn at the same time, so now they got to counter everything else. And here we got Rancor, simple. You get +2/+0 and trample. When it hits the yard, it comes back to your hand. You can respond to it, obviously. Your opponent can respond to it. But a lot of times, I've actually just had it back in my hand. But bear in mind, any type of graveyard hate can very easily respond to it. So don't plan on always getting them back. Now, I run Briar Shield. I don't run Giant Growth. I used to, but Briar Shield's the enchantment. I can +1/+1 a creature by enchanting it. So I can go ahead, say I'm playing Goblins. I play it on Pit Skulk. It's a 3/3 if it has Bloodthirst. There's no Goblin that's a 3/3 unless you're going to pump it with a Lord. So that allows me maybe a few turns to basically just keep beating with the Pit Skulk before they drop a Lord. So that's even 2 turns. That's a 6-point amount that I've just taken out of my opponent. That can mean the difference here, because all these other creatures, if you look at them, you're looking at 2 power, 2 power, 2 power, 2 power, 3 power. I can match Goblin's power or exceed it. So that's obviously a good thing. And then if I needed to, sacrifice it in response to something and just, okay, give it +3/+3 instead. Land Grant, another good, and this is a mana source for us. It allows us to basically just reveal our hand, grab a forest, put in our hand. Me personally, if you have 3 land in play and you draw a Land Grant, you don't need to play Land Grant because it's just, you have 3 land, that's all, you don't even need 3, you need 2, and you're fine. So, you know, Land Grant, you draw it, pitch it to Divine Dryad, or pitch it to Bounty of the Hunt. This is the giant growth of the deck. I only run 3 because it's a temporary boost. It's not like Vine Dryad where it's a permanent creature. Okay? It's a boost, it's a pump, and it can deliver 3 separate +1/+1 counters. Not a giant growth on a creature, but I can pump 3 different creatures +1/+1. So if I have 3 creatures, and they all have Rancor, I pump them all by 1, that might win the game. Or it might just annoy the hell out of my opponent that, you know, I do that. Either way, it's funny as hell. Now our sideboard, my sideboard here is geared more towards control. Right here we got Rushwood Legates. Obviously blue is very big in Legacy. If you have a forest, which you should, and your opponent has an island, you can drop this 3 mana cost creature into play for free. So you're going to have a free 2/1 creature. Well, your opponent wants to daze you. Okay, I have an untapped forest, so I can pay for it. And then it's really hilarious if you draw 2 in your opening hand, you play 1, they daze it, you pay the daze mana, and you play the other one, and they just look at you like, what the hell? Initially, I had Naturalize in here. In terms of artifact or enchantment hate, you know, we can run anything. You could run Crows and Grip. You could run, like I'm running Sundering Vitae. You can run Naturalize. You can run Nature's Claim, Declamor, Molder. Any of those could work. The reason I'm running Sundering Vitae is A, it's 3 mana. A lot of countertop decks really don't pack a lot of 3 mana spells in them. And yeah, Trinket Mage of course is going to be in there, but what else are they going to have for 3 mana? There's a few. I mean, if you're running blue-white, you know, yeah, we have Geist. You could do O-Ring, of course, but not every deck is going to have like all of those, the 4 of, and they're not always going to be on the top 4, on the top 3. The reason why I run this is also for Chalice, because a lot of people, if they know what you're playing, Chalice at 1 pretty much just tells you to bend over and grab your ankles. And another reason why I'm running it is of the Convoke mechanic. I can basically just tap out a bunch of creatures and then just, boom, nuke something. There we go. I don't have to tap my land for it. It's basically a free spell, technically. I gotta tap my creatures, but being an instant, I'm doing that at the end of my turn. So I really don't care about tapping the creatures then. Well, not the end of my turn, end of my opponent's turn. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. And then, of course, Hidden Gibbons. It's an enchantment. It's a 1-mana enchantment, and if my opponent plays an instant or interrupt, which is an instant now, back then we had interrupts, as long as Hidden Gibbons is still an enchantment, it becomes a 4/4 green ape creature. So basically against Delver, control, any type of control basically, this is... It's either you must counter it, or you rely on sorceries for the rest of the game. So, you know, that's a relatively cheap way to just annoy a blue player. In fact, when I play against blue, I actually tend to board out 8 cards. And actually board in Rushwood Legate and Hidden Gibbons. If it's like a blue-red Delver, I rip out Vine Dryads and throw in Rushwood Legates, and I'd probably take out, depending on the situation, I'd probably take out 1 Rogue Elephant and the 3 Nettle Sentinels and drop in the Hidden Gibbons. because against a blue deck, I want to have Daze mana, so that, you know, the rogue, one less rogue elephant is one less land I sack, of course. And then, of course, graveyard hate. We have Tormod's Crypt. I mean, you could run anything. You could run Grafdigger's Cage, Relic of Progenitus, Tormod's Crypt. You could do Surgical Extraction. You could even, you know, honestly, you could even run Deathrite Shaman, because you can use, I mean, you can generate green mana and just start ripping creatures out of Dredge's yard. You can, against other non-Dredge decks, you know, sack land a Rogue Elephant, and then tap the Shaman, generate a mana of any color, play something else. So you can do it that way. So, I mean, that's just basically the graveyard slot. I have this sideboard set up primarily for control to some degree. Harder control sideboard would be, you know, using Winter Orb, obviously, running against a lot of Enchantress in your area, or a lot of heavy enchantment decks. Tranquil Domain would be a great card. 1 green, 1 colorless, instant, destroy all non-aura enchantments, so that basically just blows Enchantress out of the water. So there's a lot of ways you can do this. Combo, Root Maze would slow them down, but I can't guarantee anything against combo because I play combo and combo rips this apart. But this is a very old deck. If you were to actually build this, I would say maybe $100. Maybe, keyword, maybe $100. Probably less. Probably way less. And I mean, for casual Legacy, this is fun. It's hilarious as hell to see the look on someone's face when you drop, like, you know, 3 green creatures on turn 1, and they're all like 2 power. It's just hilarious, and people go, "What the hell, man?" You know, free pump, free land searching, you know, surprise blockers, pseudo vigilance, forest walk, island walk, you know, just hilarity. Mind you, in green, mind you. Not in blue, not in white, but in green, which is a rarity, actually, I think. So this is, you know, this is 9 Land Stompy. It's a very old deck. There was actually one person, I believe they took either 9th or 11th place in a Star City game, Duel for Duels, running a list similar to this. They ran 9 land. I run 10 Land Stompy. But this is a, it's an old deck. And for the history of it, this is why I'm actually doing the video, because I have not found a single Stompy deck, unless we're talking about Infect Stompy, which is just a whole new ball game. But my last video, you know, I had it up for not even a week, and I had a bunch of likes, some comments. So I decided to make another one real quick. And basically, I have a bunch of decks that are loaned out right now, so this is the only one I had right here, so this is why I made it on this one. Once I get some of my other decks back that have been loaned out, I'll make videos for them, and you can see what other insanity I run. But once again, you know, if you, I mean, even if you don't want to play it, it's a fun deck, you know. You know, if you like the video, like, comment, you know, subscribe, because my last video got me 1 subscriber, so hey, keep subscribing. I'll keep making these videos, and maybe even teach my 8-year-old daughter how to play. And that's her in the bathtub screaming. So I have to go. See you later.